Welcome. What we're going to do is we're going to get Kali Linux virtual machine running. We're going to use VMware Workstation 16 or Workstation 16 Pro, and we're going to run that in a Windows-based 10 or 11 machine. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to go ahead and navigate to VMware.com. It's important to make sure you're at VMware.com and not a different site. And there's a few ways to find the download for VMware Workstation. You can choose the store. And if you open up the store, you'll see there's a link for Workstation 16. If you scroll down, you can see all of their other products. And here's all the desktop visualization tools. 16 Pro, 16 Player. You can buy or upgrade if you already have one. If you continue to slide down, note that there's a VMware academic program, and you can find some academic prices by scrolling through here as well. I already have some tabs open, so if I wanted to download VMware Workstation Player, I'd select the download for free button and let that download and install. If I wanted to use a trial version of Workstation Pro 16 currently, I go ahead and slide down here. I can choose for Windows or for Linux. And again, here we're going to use VMware Workstation 16 Pro for Windows. Now that we've downloaded and installed VMware Workstation Pro, you can see I'm at version 16. You can either create a new virtual machine, open a virtual machine, or connect to a remote server. We're going to download the Kali Linux virtual machine already configured for VMware. So we'll end up opening a virtual machine. And notice here I have the trial evaluation version. So I'm going to need to either enter a license key or get a license key from an academic program or purchase one after this expires. So let's go ahead and move over to where do we download the Kali Linux virtual machine. So let's open up a browser to kali.org. And again, make sure you're actually at the Kali Linux site. And this one's a little easier to find out how do I download this because the splash screen, and this always changes, so you might have to navigate around, but there's a download button. That's handy. So I'm going to click the download button, and here's a bunch of different options based on our platform. We know we're doing this as a virtual machine, so let's go ahead and select virtual machines. And again, we're going to use VMware. This is a 64-bit based Windows 10 or 11 system, and we're just going to start the download. So if I select it, you'll see it starting to download. One of the things we're going to need later is the sum. So if we go ahead and click that, it'll show us the SHA-256 sum, and this is the hash of the file that we're going to download. Anytime you download something from the internet due to supply chain vulnerabilities, you want to check this hash and calculate it before you unzip it, before you install it, to make sure you're installing what you think you are and what the manufacturer or the one that's offering the software is publishing that you are downloading. So we'll go ahead and let this download and then resume in a second. Now that we've finished downloading that file, I went ahead and I made a folder. I like to do this to keep all my virtual machines in it. I'll make a folder called virtual machine or virtual machines. And you can see that we have the downloaded .7z file right here. I mentioned the SHA-256 sum. So the first thing we want to do, we have what it should be. We want to verify that. So I can just right click on it, generally in a Windows machine, and go ahead and check that hash. Let it calculate the SHA-256. That's super hard to say fast. And then as that calculates, we'll pull it over here. And we can see that it does match. So we've verified that download before we install it. So we feel a little bit safer. And we know that it hasn't been modified. The next thing we want to do is unzip it. And you see it's a .7z file. That's a 7-zip file. It might be too small for you to read it. Trust me, that's what it downloads. So if you open up another tab, if you don't have it, you probably want to install 7-zip. The website is 7-zip.org. This is generally what I like to use. And then again, we can go ahead if we right click on it and we have 7-zip loaded. That's one of the options, 7-zip. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to extract it, and it gives me an option for a Kali Linux virtual machine folder. And I'm going to go ahead and extract it to that folder. We'll let that process go ahead and complete. So that finished up, and you can see it created the folder with all the appropriate files inside of it. So we have a virtual VMware files. You see it's a .vmdk. Again, probably the font's a little bit too small, but trust me, that's what it is. So all of the files are in there. So now let's pull everything together and get our machine running in VMware. So we've opened up our VMware Workstation Pro. The folders are inside, and it will highlight the file that you need that is a configured full version of the Kali virtual machine for VMware. So the file extension here is .vmx. It's the only one, so it makes it kind of easy. So I'll go ahead and open that. And then you'll see that it's starting a tab for a new virtual machine for our Kali Linux. Before we power it on, that says power on virtual machine, there's a few settings we can make. So right now it'll say there's a 2 gigs of RAM for this, and I'm going to go ahead and put it up just for now to 8 or so. Just depends how much you have on your machine. It'll run fine on 2. The network adapter here is set to NAT. So it's network address translation. It's going to stay on my local network so that I'm using some of these Kali Linux tool. It's self-contained, and I'm not as worried about something getting out in the wild. So I'm going to have this NATed. You can change it to bridged if you want to it to share the IP address of your host, but we'll leave that to NATed. The default hard drive space for the virtual machine is 80 gig. I'll go ahead and leave that. And with just changing the memory and verifying the NAT right here on the network adapter, I'll go ahead and power on the Kali Linux virtual machine. You can see this just popped right on up actually into the login screen. And the default user on this version is Kali, and again, Kali to log in. So now I have my own machine that's inside my Windows machine, that's Kali Linux. I'll go ahead and maximize that. With the Pro version, you do get some really unique tools, and one of those I really love is you can stretch it to meet the guest. So whatever the screen size I have, I can stretch it to meet that size, or I can just make it a window onto my desktop if I have several virtual machines running together. The main menu is the Kali icon that shows you all of the applications, and you're really up and running right here. One good thing to do is to check the web browser and make sure that you have internet connectivity between the virtual machine through your host. So we'll just pick something here. We'll just go to google.com. And you can see, in fact, I do have internet connectivity. Besides the browser and the icon that shows all of our applications, you can see there's an icon here for a terminal window. And I can go ahead and get to work at the terminal prompt also. This should get you started. If you have a chance, go ahead and select subscribe and continue to make these videos when we get some chance, and here's some related content there. Thank you.